Come on into the ditch. I'm your resident ditch witch, Tine, and we're about to get witchy whether you like it or not. With Joe Biden's recent racist comments about Ireland being merely one tiny example of the vast and perpetual ocean of racism Irish people face all day, every day in many corners of the internet, there's probably a large portion of you watching this who probably won't actually enjoy this video. That is, unless you're the sort of person who can listen to the everyday factual experiences of an entire nation and change your impressions of and opinions about said nation accordingly. If you're the sort of person who listens to those experiences and feels like arguing, you're gonna hate it. But I don't care, because today we need to discuss the difference between being Irish and being Irish American. And we're going to do that by having me read and react to some common examples of typical exchanges between actual Irish people and Irish American people who are convinced they are as Irish, if not more so, than those of us who actually live here and work here, were born here, who speak the language, who understand all the modern cultural references, etc. And they are numerous. A tsunami every time I click into Facebook, and yes, we will be reacting to Joe Biden. So we're going to get stuck into those posts very soon, but first I want to say this video is not about hating on people whose ancestors were forced to leave Ireland for survival or a better life. This is not that, okay? I have the deepest sympathy for all the expats and their descendants. Truly. Despite Ireland being up to our eyeballs in corruption, it makes my heart sore to think of being forced to live elsewhere, and even more so to imagine my descendants still being unable to return for so many reasons. But there needs to be a conversation had about St. Patrick's Day. Frankly, I thought I could ignore St. Patrick's Day this year and avoid the mostly unmanageable annual stress of being an Irish person online who's tried in vain to correct the never-ending waves of absolute nonsense and stereotypes which are spewed about us without our consent or any basis in fact whatsoever. But before we go there, and we are going there, I'd like to send love to all my Irish American friends and viewers who are actively engaging with modern Irish culture or working hard to preserve knowledge and folklore within the diaspora, as well as those who support Irish teachers and content creators like myself, those who work hard to correct misconceptions amongst their fellow country people, and those who do better once they know better. Because there is a sinister element in the US using aspects of a very outdated take on Irish culture, both real and imagined, to further what I believe to be a white supremacist agenda. Excuse the cough, which I did on purpose so YouTube doesn't ban me for saying white supremacist. And yes, we might have a racist element here in Ireland too. Unfortunately, it's one of our go-to factors to blame when our economy's in the toilet, which is actually our government's fault. I know, what a surprise! But for the most part, we are a nation who values tolerance and community and celebrating differences rather than exploiting and marginalising them. And if your Irish heritage has you thinking you are somehow superior to another person, especially if their ethnicity or skin colour is a factor, get in the sea. Get in the sea. Love the Irish nation. And if you're not a racist father, but you are a person whose claim to being Irish includes an obsession with DNA, bloodlines, corned beef, and or a castle you feel a weird sense of entitlement over because a website told you that someone with the same surname as you owned it 1,000 years ago, you might want to read your Irish history. Those are not things we value in Ireland at all, and we have very little time for people who do. In fact, if it's been more than one generation since your ancestors left Ireland and your idea of Ireland is literally just what they've told you or what you've seen on TV, there's a very good chance that little to none of what you know is actually relevant to the Ireland of today. Is America the same as it was in the 1950s? No? well, either is Ireland. So anyway, I think you've been properly prepared for what's to come. So here are a selection of some of the most horrifyingly frequent examples I could find of plastic paddywhackery that drives actual Irish people up the actual walls. And these are only from a single, relatively small group over the course of only 3 weeks. Imagine how much of it we're faced with in groups that have hundreds of thousands of members. Anyway, let's start with something small and easy to digest. Hi, I'm new to this group. I recently joined because I'm Irish, through and through. Both parents have parents who emigrated from Ireland. Been there once, not nearly enough. No shit. This person hasn't had their lives ruined by Fianna Fáil Gael, and it shows. Not even once, like. Next! Hi, I'm new to this group. I recently joined because my husband and I are booked for 420 to 429. If this person were actually Irish and not Irish American, this post would read, I recently joined because my husband and I are booked for the 4th day of the 20th month to the 4th day of the 29th month, resulting in a 9-month stay in Ireland which both begins and ends on fictional days. I mean, Ryanair would probably still tell you the tickets, but it's gonna get mighty cold on that runway mighty fast. At this stage, if you think I'm being petty, let's talk about non-Irish people profiting from semi-fictionalised or wholly fictionalised and sometimes harmful versions of Ireland or Irish culture. Deep into the indigenous wisdom of your early ancestors, the ancient pre-Celtic builders of the earth temples. So, Neolithic people then, yeah? The womb temples. Louth and Daithí, Newgrange. We're not going to get uppity about these three being called womb temples, or how they seem to be tarring them all with the one brush. Irish people will occasionally make this reference. They are fairly near to each other and are a nice threesome of monuments to visit, if you get the chance. 1,000 years later, the sky temples were built. Okay, what the fuck even is a sky temple, since you haven't bothered even trying to name one? Stop sweeping archaeological fact under the convoluted New Age rug. It doesn't fit and the bulge looks ridiculous. This person then presumes to tease us with the evolution of Irish culture, of our own deep past, and the many opportunities to feel in the same place as our ancestors trod. And I'm getting the distinct impression that that does not mean feeling woe just outside Abracadabra after throwing shapes in Ridley's of a Saturday night. Oh, and here's the kicker. Here in the Americas, we walk upon lands stolen from the indigenous, and their traditions have been repressed and lost or recovered after times of trauma. The gravity of all trauma affects us in layers. We can each heal from the discovery and recovery of our own tribal and indigenous wisdom. So hang on, you feel bad that you're still benefiting from the land your ancestors stole from the still marginalised people whose traditions have been repressed and lost or recovered after times of trauma. And to feel better about it, you're going to make thousands of dollars, leading others like yourself in traipsing around someone else's land, which is still partially colonised and still in the embryonic days of partial decolonisation, and whose repressed and recovered traditions you'll be putting your own personal spin on and profiting off without actually consulting or collaborating with anyone from that nation who might have a better knowledge of their land and sacred sites than you do. Then you share it in a group about Irish mythology and target your post at other Irish Americans as if you didn't just hijack our group to spam us with your completely unverified personal gnosis. I'm not even going to dignify the rest of their response. OP doesn't know how to use a fada, and I saw something about the autumn equinox, so I know it's utter horseshit. In the words of one astute commenter, are you just farting into your hands and typing the farts onto the internet? Now for corned beef. By the way, most Irish people have never tasted corned beef, and many of them have never even heard of it. Anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day. This is my favourite holiday, and let me tell you why. Please do, I'm dying to hear it. Yes, the bars, pubs, decorations, and commercialisation is attractive. Okay. Who can deny outrageous outfits, green rivers, and dyed beer. By the way, we don't dye our rivers or beer green in Ireland, and we are low-key horrified by people who do. The one time Dublin's River Liffey was dyed green, it was done to commemorate the relationship between Ireland and Chicago. Presumably Ireland was trying to lure some tourists or some corporations over or something. And we even had to hire Chicago's City Plumbing Corporation in to do the job, because we don't believe in appropriating other people's cultures. And green rivers are definitely more a Chicago thing. The amount of socialization is insane, and binge drinking can be overwhelming. Oh dear. Yeah, so side note, binge drinking is incredibly bad for your physical and mental health. It's something we've traditionally suffered with as a nation, like many colonised nations do, and now that we have the tools, we're working on it. Please stop glorifying alcoholism as a character trait of being Irish. It's not, and you suck. On this day, I traditionally grew up learning about our Irish family tree, listening to my father's favourite Celtic musical reels. Okay, so your dad listened to folk music from the Isle of Man. Weird thing to brag about on St. Patrick's Day, but okay. Indulging in homemade corned beef and cabbage stew, and I really hope there's an and missing from that sentence, because otherwise, ugh. I actually feel kind of sorry for this person. That sounds manky. Along with phoning my red-headed grandmother. Oh, she was a Viking. Aww. Her quotes were full of Irish blessings, everlasting love and sad, blah blah blah. Hashtag St. Patrick's Day. Bonus points for spelling it right though. Although it's a bit sad that they only phoned her red-haired grandmother once a year. And equally sad that they really only practice being Irish one day a year. Yeah, so while we are on the subject of how to spell Paddy's Day, here's another non-Irish person informing us that it can be St. Patrick's Day, St. Paddy's Day, or St. Patty's Day. Oh, it's all just a matter of choice. There is no wrong way of writing it, and it all comes down to personal preference, so it's all good. I myself call it St. Patty's Day. It's spelled P-A-D-D-Y, not P-A-T-T-Y, for the love of God. That absolutely is the wrongest possible way to write that. I had to put my phone down, it's so wrong. Patty is an American abbreviation of Patricia, and it's something to do with a hamburger. It is not an Irish name, and it's not the same as Paddy, which is as common as John or Michael in Ireland. Paddy is the short form for Patrick, which is the anglicisation of Pádraig or Padraig. Please stop arguing with Irish people when they tell you this. You're making an utter clown shoe of yourself. And since you lot started it with the harmful stereotypes, let's see what happens when the shoe is on the other foot and Irish people get snarky. Don't listen to the haters. I'm American. I mean, I've never been to America, but two of my uncles live there. My mother was born on the 4th of July, and my favourite colours are blue and red. Oh, and I love macaroni and cheese. I definitely feel American in my heart, and I can't wait to visit the motherland one day and finally get to bring a kid to a supermarket because of freedom. Rather predictably, the response is, the ignorance of this statement is pretty unbelievable. Face palm. Admin, can you please review the comments and remove those with unkind statements? Unfortunately, this group has become quite toxic, so everyone's a Karen when the tables are turned. And despite being let off easy, OP and friends dogpiled on this Irish person afterwards for stereotyping America that way. Let's face it, if this were a fully developed, start to finish satire of the ignorance Irish people face daily on the internet, there'd be a horde of commentators dogpiling on the American person for not wishing to be portrayed as a voting nationalistic weirdo. They'd be outnumbered in most of the online groups purporting to be about their nation's culture and heritage, where people from other countries who've never even lived there would spend most of their time and most of the comment section telling them how to be American and judging them arbitrarily for how American they are or are not. And yes, there will be an example example of this happening to Irish people because it's non-stop. Personally, I'm all for the snark. There is nothing like holding up a mirror to show someone what an absolute gowl they're being. Now, someone please do it to this goon. Irish OP says, proudly claims to be of Irish descent. Also says this. President Biden jokes he's really not Irish because he's sober and doesn't have relatives in jail. Yeah, so if Mr. Democrat POTUS can still get away with saying shit like this, scot-free, can you imagine what we're hearing from the millions of people amongst his population who feel entitled to make similar jokes about us? I agree with the commenter who said, self-deprecating humour doesn't work when it's not actually about yourself. Also, Joe Biden can off. Sincerely, Ireland. Okay, we're gonna stop for a wee break and a palate cleanser. This doggo feels my pain. And we're gonna hear from one of the good ones next, okay? I know you need it. I bloody need it. Okay. You know, as a person with a lot of Irish ancestry, well said, sometimes I get kinda sad when native Irish people hate on Irish Americans for wanting to experience their ancestors' culture. Totally understandable. Like my great etc. grandparents had to move over here because of the famine and have been extremely proud of their Irish lineage ever since. And then this legend flips it. But then I see shit like this. I named my child Guinness because that's my inner Irish coming out. Beer emoji, whiskey emoji, tricolour emoji. And I get it. Like, book up and name your child an actual Irish name like all the kids I grew up with in Boston. 0.04% on 23andMe energy. Dropkick Murphy's energy. Irish alcoholic jokes energy. Nailed it. 100 points to that person. I hope they stop getting shit for researching their ancestors' culture because it doesn't actually sound like they deserve it. And we're back in the room. My only goal as an Irish girl from Oklahoma is to go to the motherland of Boston. Good. I hope you make it there sometime. And if it were just millions of mistakes being made by millions of people every day, but those people, when corrected, threw up their hands and went, my sincerest apologies, I didn't know, now I do, and I'll try harder, thank you for educating me, then it mightn't bother us so much. But actually, this next one is far more common. Here we have a person who doesn't claim to be Irish, but who did spend some enjoyable years living here and so understands and negotiates the cultural nuances beautifully. Lovely. Unfortunately, I was not born in Ireland, meaning I'm unfortunately not really Irish. But I spent some years around Galway and it has been a wonderful time, always. Aww. I'm not Irish, but I'm sure you won't be dismissed. Someone says nothing unfortunate about it. Then you have a non-Irish person correcting them to tell them they are in fact Irish, if they have Irish ancestry. Not born there, but if you have Irish ancestry, you're Irish. Then you have an actual Irish person agreeing with the first commenter and acknowledging the lived experience they have as a former inhabitant of Ireland. No, he's entirely correct. He's not Irish, but he has a far more educated view on what Irish people are actually like than all the ones cosplaying and perpetuating ridiculous, ignorant stereotypes of us and talking over us when we correct them because they can't accept that we don't live up to and have no intentions of plumoting them about this little fantasy they have of us. True story. Then the non-Irish expert on all things Irish doubles down on their position by implying that it must be true because their Irish ancestry makes them Irish, so it must apply to everyone. Irish person points out the linguistic difference between ancestry and nationality. Non-Irish person loses their actual shit and accuses Irish person of bullying them and calls them ignorant. Irish person stands their ground. Non-Irish person continues playing the victim for another 5 screenshots. I'm exhausted just reading that. This is pretty typical of what happens when we try to educate people. And even though I don't usually get a lot of abuse on my videos, I'm probably expecting a lot of it on this one. And in case you didn't believe the non-Irish people being racist in Irish group stuff earlier, Here you go. In response to someone posting the top 50 surnames in Ireland in 2022, all to be replaced very soon by immigrants. Presumably Irish person asks, where were you based? Non-Irish person says, my ancestry places my origins in Connacht region of, Ireland. So weird geography aside, what we essentially have is a non-Irish racist posing as an Irish person while stirring up anti-immigrant feelings in an Irish group. Blah! A reminder at this point that you don't have to be born in Ireland to become Irish. You don't need to have white skin or an Irish sounding name to be Irish. You don't need to be Irish to learn and appreciate our culture or our language. But having Irish ancestry by itself does not make you Irish, especially if you've never lived here. Rather, you are part of the Irish American, Irish Canadian, Irish Australian diaspora. Own it. Be proud. And for the love of God, stop arguing with and shouting over and profiting from Irish people. You don't know their culture as well as you think you do, and Irish people are exhausted. I hoped this video was going to be a laugh. I've actually been putting off making it for ages, but really it makes me never want to go on the internet ever again. So naturally I have to tell YouTube about it. I don't have any more words for today. If you'd like to hear me rant about other stuff, hit the like button, drop it in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more stuff. I upload most Thursdays and you're not going to want to miss it, especially if you're hate watching it. Slánagus Bannogs, whatever.
Jumping in here to say gur míle maithagat agus fáilte. A massive thank you and welcome to the newest member of the channel, Harold Gnomson, who clicked the join button and signed up to be a Lunasa level member at €10 a month, which goes a massive way towards keeping this channel alive and kicking. Thanks again, Harold, it's hugely appreciated.